time. I call the member for Macarthur.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy Speaker. I rise today to speak on this bill, the Family Assistance and Other Legislation Amendment, School Kids Bonus Bill 2012, because I believe that we should be redefining the education tax rebate system rather than handing out taxpayers' money as a cash bonus. It is obvious that the Labor's announcement to dump the education tax rebate to give out handfuls of taxpayers' money is a desperate bid to win votes. Mr Deputy Speaker, nothing more, nothing less. If I didn't know any better, this sounds like a cash for votes to me. It has taken a broader community less than 24 hours after the Budget announcement to work this out. This ploy will not work with the people of Macarthur, who understand the importance of the education tax rebate, a targeted program that provided genuine assistance to relieve education costs for parents. If this government was serious about supporting parents in Macarthur, they would not be dumping this rebate and replacing it with a sugar-coated payment to try and win votes. We all know that this new program is designed to distract from the carbon tax hit of the cost of living, which will go up and up every year. Residents in Macarthur aren't stupid, Madam Deputy Speaker. They know that prices will continue to rise as a result of a carbon tax, and a cash payment before July this year just isn't going to cut it. Labor's new policy is bad policy. It's not about offsetting education costs. It's simply a sugar hit for families to create a diversion from the increased bills and costs that will rise come July the 1st. Labor is recklessly promoting this measure, but don't spook the fact that parents don't have to spend this payment on their child's education. They can spend it on anything they like. There is no accountability, Madam Deputy Speaker. How can this government genuinely claim this cash splash will be spent on the educational needs of our children? They can't. How can they guarantee the money will be spent for the purpose it was given? They can't. Now, I've heard a number of members speak today, and I've got to actually say, Madam Deputy Speaker, some of them are in dreamland or away with the pixies. When you look at some of the members talking about low socio-economic backgrounds and money being put up front for people to spend on their children's education, well, have a look at the last cash splash leading up to the last election, Madam Deputy Speaker. Go around and ask the publicans, the clubs, how much their profits went up for that period of time. There is no guarantee this money will be spent on each child's educational needs. A number of members have mentioned a number of issues in relation to alcohol, drugs, and many other issues. And I'm sure that a lot of this money, a significant amount of this money, will be wasted and not spent for the purpose it was given. As part of its plan, Labor has removed the cash incentive for parents to invest in their children's schooling needs, and ultimately this will be counterproductive for our school kids. Yes, parents in Macarthur are struggling. They need all the help they can get, but the carbon tax is going to hit them hard, and a lump sum sugar payment will not sweeten the deal. And why do you think this payment is being made before June 30 this year, Madam Deputy Speaker? I ask you, this is one of the most blatant attempts to cook this year's budget books in order to allow Labor to protect its artificial surplus next financial year, because the refund will be paid out before the end of this financial year. The Coalition knows that families with school-age children have large costs, and Macarthur families are no different. But the best way to ensure money is spent on our kids is through the now abolished education tax refund system. This was a regime that ensured taxpayers' money was given only to families who actually spent money on education costs and needs of their children. The Coalition took a policy to the last election that vastly expanded the number of school expense items that were eligible through the rebate and increased the rebate amounts. We did this because we know that parents need better assistance. The Coalition's plan would have provided rebate for families of $1,000 for each secondary school-aged child and $500 for each primary school-aged child. By contrast, Labor's scheme provides much less, only $820 for secondary school-aged children and $410 for primary school-aged children, leaving a family with 2 children some $270 a year worse off than our policy. Perhaps this government should have paid attention to the Coalition's policy, which was more money, better targeted, and went straight to those families who needed it most. If, as the government suggests, people are slipping through the cracks and not claiming their education tax refund, we should simplify the system and promote an awareness program through schools and possibly the P&C organisations. It's not too hard to put out a few newsletters a year at the start of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, and notify parents how they can claim the rebate for the educational needs of their children. Too simple, one would think. What about school newsletters I'd mentioned at the beginning of the year, just before tax time? Families need to know that they could receive just as much money, if not more, under a coalition policy by claiming the education tax rebate. Not only is this money accountable, it ensures that the education needs of our children are addressed. Labor says it's supporting our families and their children, but who do we think will be repaying their debt in the future? I just can't sit by as Labor continues to borrow more money, because while some parents might benefit this year, it will be their children who will have to repay Labor's debt for years into the future, and that's not right. Madam Deputy Speaker, I brought up my two daughters in Macarthur. My wife and I worked hard to support our family, and I can tell you that a long-term plan like the education tax rebate system would have been much more of a helping hand than this sugar-coated payment followed by a hike in all of our bills due to the carbon tax. The people of Macarthur will not be fooled by this sugar hit. It's a senseless cash splash for more votes. Residents in my electorate know that this Prime Minister isn't interested in helping local families. She's only interested in keeping her own job. Macarthur parents supporting students studying for the HSC need to know that while they may get a sugar hit in June, that won't last long, because their child will get slammed by hundreds of dollars in compulsory student union fees. If you ask me, this is just another example of a Labor attacking Middle Australia, Madam Deputy Speaker. The school kids bonus isn't about helping local families, it's about throwing money at people before they get hit with the world's biggest carbon tax. It's merely a distraction, a quick, short-term sugar hit to distract people from a carbon tax that will keep on hitting them time and time again. Labor's claim that they support Australian families is farcical. Just take a look back through history. In the 2008 budget, Labor means tested the family tax benefit so that any family with a main income earner has an income of more than $150,000 lost the benefit. In 2008 budget, Labor introduced a means test on a baby bonus, which limited the baby bonus to families with an adjusted taxable income of $75,000 or less in the 6 months after the birth of a baby. This is equivalent of an adjusted taxable income of $150,000 a year or less. Madam Deputy Speaker, in the 2009 budget, Labor froze indexation for the full payment of the family tax benefits A and B, the baby bonus and the dependent spouse rebate. Labor also announced that from the 1st of July 2009, the income test for Commonwealth Seniors Health Card would include income from superannuation streams for a tax source and salary that is sacrificed to superannuation. What happened? They subsequently backed down after community outrage. In the 2011 budget, Labor froze indexation for family tax benefits A and B, supplement payments. In my EFO, Labor cut the baby bonus from $5,400 to $5,000 and froze indexation of the payment for 3 years. In the 2012 budget, Labor cut the age of eligibility for the family tax benefit Part A to families with children over 18 years, meaning families with children aged 19 to 21 will no longer receive assistance through the family tax benefit. And what about the flood levy? Those earning over $100,000 were forced to pay 0.5% of taxable income in excess of $50,000 and 1% of taxable income in excess of $100,000. In my electorate, a retiring police officer was forced to remain in the workforce to avoid a $6,500 hit to his superannuation because of this tax. Because of this tax, he was receiving a lump sum payment in that financial year. He was unwell and wanted to retire, but was already paying $90,000 tax on his super and remained in the workforce to avoid another $6,500 loss. How is this looking after hard-working families? And don't think that residents of Macarthur have noticed the increase in the cost of living under this government. How can you claim to be supporting Australian families when so many of them can't afford to pay their electricity bills? There are people in my electorate on low incomes or in the welfare system who are waiting up to 3 months for $30 vouchers to assist them with their electricity bills. Let's look at Labor's record from December quarter 2007 to December quarter of 2011. Electricity prices have increased by an average of 61% across Australia. Gas prices have increased by an average of 37% across Australia. Water and sewage rates have increased by an average of 58% across Australia. Health costs have increased by an average of 20% across Australia. Education costs have increased by an average of 24% across Australia. The cost of food overall has gone up by 13% across Australia. The amount of rent people are now paying has increased by 25% across Australia. When is this government going to realise that the people of this country aren't stupid? They can see through the smoke and mirrors. They can see through the financial trickery. We have a government saying that they are saving money, controlling the spending, reducing the debt. What sort of message are they really sending to the people of Australia when they are increasing their borrowing ceiling from $250 billion to $300 billion? And there are plenty of questions in the people in the community asking that question. This government just keeps on spending, spending and keeps on taxing and taxing. The people of Macarthur know that this is a cook-the-books budget with the artificial surplus based on fiddle figures and money shuffles. The Treasurer lives in Wayne's world. It doesn't exist, only in his mind. The $1.5 billion surplus is a mirage. The closer you look at it, you realise it doesn't exist. Local families know that a cash payment on June the 30th is not going to take away the carbon tax pain that begins on July the 1st. Madam Deputy Speaker, the education rebate tax should not have been dumped by this government. It's a silly mistake. Spending taxpayers' money on these payments with no accountability of how the money is spent is not fair to the hard-working people of Australia who pay their taxes on a daily basis. If the money is to be spent on the education of our children, then redefining the education tax rebate would have been a much more effective way to do it than these lump sum payments will only plunge this country further into debt. We are currently paying $8 billion interest each year on our national debt. This could easily pay for a national disability insurance scheme, something the people of Australia are waiting for. Madam Deputy Speaker, the people of Macarthur can see what's happening here. They can see that this cash payment is nothing but an attempt to distract them from the carbon tax and the painful price hikes that it will cause. And while this government claims to be supporting Australian families, it will be the future generations of this country that have to repay the billions of dollars in debt caused by this government's wasteful spending and incompetence.